20 kilometres northwest of Épernay is Vincelles, the small town which has become the major production centre for the northeast sector of the region. It serves an area particularly rich with vines on the southeast slopes of the Marne, which traps the sun and makes the fullest, roundest and ripest wines with an outstanding bouquet.
Welcome to Champagne. As you could see, this is our typical landscape. In the top, you've got the forest. Just underneath, the hills with the vineyards and the grapes. Below that, the field for the agriculture of the region. And finally, the river Marne.
Éventuellement, oui, on peut, mais bon, c'est pas vraiment. In Champagne, there are 4 different areas for grapes. We have Côte des Blancs, from Épernay to Cézanne, the south of Épernay, mainly planted with white grapes, Chardonnay. After we have a very big area from Épernay to Reims. We call it Montagne de Reims, mainly planted with Pinot Noir. We have in the south of Champagne the Aube region, and here we are in the Marne Valley, mainly planted with Pinot Meunier. Most area of Champagne are mainly chalk soils, but in Marne Valley we have a blend of chalk and clay. As you can see, the ground we have, this is the clay and this is the chalk. And we plant Pinot Meunier because Pinot Meunier likes this kind of soil. Regardez les raisins là. Regarde, on a vraiment des très très beaux raisins. Hein? Tiens.
We are in Champagne Blin, so we are right in the middle of the Marne Valley. Champagne Blin is actually a cooperative created in 1947 on the impulsion of Mr. Henry Blin, who was himself a very successful winegrower. And what he's done is basically decided to associate with other winegrowers from the Marne Valley. Most of these winegrowers were from the village of Vincelles at the beginning, around 1947. Nowadays, the cooperative has grown nearly every year. We've got about 100 members in the cooperative, which represent about 110 hectares of champagne. We generally produce about 70% of Pinot Meunier, 20% Chardonnay, and about 10% Pinot Noir.
This is a grape, a bench of Pinot Meunier. It's a small grape, very black, good quality, good maturity, and give lots of fruit. And the acidity of the Pinot Meunier is lower than in the Pinot Noir. And you can get good champagne after 2 years, 3 years in cellars. This is the Pinot Noir. The grape is a little bit bigger than Pinot Meunier. Pinot Noir is very interesting for the acidity. Pinot Noir gives the body, the structure to our champagne. We use it mainly in our vintage blends because we can age it longer in cellar. This is Chardonnay grapes. It's only white grapes we grow in Champagne, and we add about 20% of Chardonnay wines in our blends. Chardonnay gives flower notes and the freshness in our wines.
What you've got just behind me is our press facilities where all our wine growers from the region are bringing their grapes to be processed. During the season of the harvest in Champagne, we work through 24 hours a day to process the grapes we've received from the wine growers. First of all, what we do with the grapes is we just weight the quantity. We as well taste the quality and make sure that the level of sugar we receive in the grapes is consistent and will enable us to produce the best quality champagne. We've got 3 grapes. 2 of those grapes are red grapes. So the tricky things with champagne is to press the grapes as quickly as possible to extract the juice only from the grapes and not to have the colored skin. The pressing lasts for about 4 hours where we extract all the juice. The juice then is let in a tanker for about 12 hours so that the sediment of the fresh press will go and settle in the bottom of the tank. The next stage is to transfer this juice to a proper stainless steel tank. This is where it's going to start the first fermentation, which is the basic of the méthode traditionnelle in Champagne. After about 15 days, the fermentation stops, and we've got now some clear wine in the top of the tank, where in the bottom we find all the sediment coming from the yeast and as well from the rest of the press. So we're going to extract only the top of the tank, and we're going to blend the juice coming from our 35 different tanks. After the blending, we've got now a clear wine, which is nearly ready to go into the bottles. But before putting the wine inside the bottle, we had some natural yeast to create the second fermentation. But before the fermentation starts, we put the wine inside the bottle so that the fermentation will take place inside the bottle. We close the bottle, and then we could leave the bottle in the cellar for a minimum of 3 years. And this is where the champagne gets created. After the bottles stayed in the cellar, 15 months for the non-vintage and a minimum of 3 years for the vintage, the bottles are turned. The reason we turn the bottles is to remove the sediment in the bottom of the bottle. So our process is basically to turn the bottles from a quarter and increase the verticality by 10% every day. The next day we just have to turn the bottle back and increase again by 10%. And after about 7 to 10 days, the bottle is basically vertical with all the clear champagne in the top and the sediment in the neck of the bottle. One of the most important stages of the production of champagne we call the disgorgement. We're going to remove this sediment by freezing the top 2 centimeters of the neck of the bottles. To remove the sediment, we just open the bottles mechanically, and with the pressure made from the champagne, the small ice cubes just pop out of the bottles, and we've got a clear champagne without any sediment. The next stage is to add what we call a liqueur of disgorgement. This liqueur would have a little bit of sugar. It's at this stage where we decide we do either a non-dosage champagne, which is basically a champagne with very low yield of sugar. We could add some sugar to create an extra dry champagne, a brut, an extra brut, or a demi-sec. So after the disgorgement, the champagne is nearly ready to be drunk. We just need to add the final touch of the bottle, which is the natural cork and what we call a muselet, which is basically some metal wire that would avoid the cork to eject by the pressure the champagne will make. After that stage, we turn the bottle to blend the liqueur of disgorgement so that we've got an homogeneous champagne. After the disgorgement, our bottles are labeled and left for about a month in our warehouse, and then they are ready to be released on the markets.